All righty. Well, we're back with another episode on the Auto Hawker podcast. And this time I'm joined by Arthur Cali. Arthur, would you like to say hello?
Yes. Hello. Like to say, thank you again for the opportunity to come on here and talk today.
Well, I'm glad that you were able to come on. I know this has been a long time coming. I know last year we tried to do that kind of that Twitter space thing where I did that. We're going to record it that way and go on YouTube. But I guess our both of our lack of technical abilities flopped that. So it's kind of ridiculous it's taken us a year to sit down and do this after all the stuff I've been fiddling with and working on. But we're here now, so it might not be best to complain about that.
True. Very true.
So anyway, viewers, if you're wondering, this is going to be an episode where I interview. I know Arthur's been on. I believe he was in our roundtable episode 3. He might have not got to say much, but Arthur's somebody I've interacted with for a while on Twitter, probably the last 2 years now, I bet. And he's pretty interesting. He writes a lot, and so I figured it was time to give him some, some limelight. So first, I guess go ahead and just explain yourself.
Yeah. Like you said, I'm a writer. I have a Substack called Arthur and Kelly's Thoughts, and I post prolifically on Twitter under my at Arthur and Kelly profile. And really, my realm of I wouldn't quite call it expertise, but uh, my brand is politics, geopolitical events. I'm retired military. Pretty much spent my entire active duty career during the global war on terror era. From the late '90s to close to 2020. I'm still within the defense realm, and just kind of watch the daily events and give my take on it. Lots of essays, articles, posts, and really try to push the conversation forward on where I, as someone on, in the right wing sphere, how I think things should go, or how we should kind of perceive the events.
Yeah, that's very good. Having more of a most people I feel like start this stuff, maybe myself included, with the idea of doing this so you can get fame and attention and things of that nature. But really, at the end of the day, it's a mission, and you're either in the rap world you push P. I guess in this world you push P propaganda. Whether it's you're trying to either disseminate ideas through your writing, or you're providing an outlet for people to speak, or have their thoughts shared. So you're either a producer or you're a distributor. And I view myself as a more of a distributor than a producer, but I guess, I'm technically both since I produce these YouTube videos. That's kind of that's kind of a bad simile or whatever you want to say on that. So anyway though, Arthur, I know you said you're in the military, but would you like to tell me your background? I know you hail from the Lone Star State. Can you tell me about how that maybe affected your upbringing and what got you involved in the military?
Oh, definitely. Like you said, I'm born and raised in Texas, one of the more rural areas, and the military, which service in itself, I guess in one way I need to kind of at least backstop that with I joined before 9/11, and I've actually kind of been working with a couple of ideas on essay topics within that perspective, because for all intents and purposes it does seem that for a lot of events you kind of have pre 9/11, post 9/11. And so for me, joining the military, it for one, it was it was kind of a family tradition. Every male had served, going way back. And so there was that sense of duty and obligation to wear the uniform, do my duty, at least for a minimum hitch, which of course turned into the career. But Fairly or not, to me, there's parts of the USA that has stronger sense of commitments to military service. It's no big secret that the southern region of America has we've punched above our weight, per capita and whatnot on enlistments. And you can go back and see many families where that's the family business. Not so much for me. My father he'd actually gotten drafted way back in the day, and so it wasn't like a recent history there, but that sense of duty was still there. And you know, secondly, for me, honestly, when you grow up in a small town, with not a lot of, I guess, big things to see, you want to go see the world. So that was a huge draw to me to join the military, to go out and see the world. Growing up, I was that kid always reading National Geographics, watching. I don't even think it was called the Travel Channel at the time, but watching the documentaries and just saying to myself one day, like, I want to go see all that. And Uncle Sam definitely gave me that opportunity. I've probably at last count, I've been to more countries than states. I've been all around the world. You name a region, I've been through there, stationed there, or whatnot. And for me, that's that's almost. I mean, it's almost priceless to have that global perspective, because once you've been out there, you know, and seen things from the other side and whatnot. Not to get into a big tangent, but within America, we have that kind of that media bubble. It's very, America centric. And when you're overseas and you're watching the news, yeah, they'll talk about America, but it's international. And so, America gets, it lasts little 5 or 10 minutes of, okay, this is what happened here, but they're covering everything. They're covering the globe. And so it still makes me kind of chuckle a bit when you hear politicians and others talking about the world is watching this. And it's like, no, not really. I mean, yeah, I mean, they kind of notice and stuff, but it's not that focused. And, it's a huge world. And I think the final reason that I joined is, and this isn't a knock against my fellow Southerners or ruralites, but there's just too many folks where I grew up that were just that typical, born there, raised there, live there, die there types. Yeah, they take a little vacation, maybe go a few states over and stuff, but it kind of, it limited their perspectives on the world and our place within it. Good people, don't get me wrong, wonderful people, salt of the earth, but sadly at times this also enables others to kind of, at least in my opinion, to guide them around per se, if you know what I'm saying. Like we talked about propaganda a little bit earlier, and it seems to work a bit more effectively on people who haven't had the broader perspectives, or haven't had that lived experience. And it doesn't make them bad people at all, but it just makes them more susceptible to it, in my opinion.
No, that's a fair idea. I mean, you're definitely right about that. The people that buy into propaganda more seem like they're the less traveled. Now, on the other end, it does seem like that a lot of our well traveled, whatever socialite people are, playing more into the enemy's hands. So I find it kind of interesting that one, the same thing for some people makes them, more like us, and for others, it makes them not like us. No reference to that song in that. I was gonna say, I've been a little decently traveled, not around the world, though I've been out of the country once, just for a week, but, it's still, yeah, where I went, the news, was definitely not showing America. It was, all British television. It wasn't the UK though. All British television or German television, things of that nature. And I've been to, several states. I think I've been to every southern state. Whether
Yeah.
it was actually stopping there and spending a night or driving through it, I've been to, yeah, every single southern state, which I'm glad. I just wish I could spend a night in every southern state. But anyway, so
Well,
what
real quick, you bring up an excellent point, and I just wanted to kind of put a pin in that one. That it can go the other way, and that's where you're cosmopolitan types with that mindset. And what gets me is for a lot of these people, they're not seeing the world. They're traveling from location to location, going into the hotel or uh, seeing what they want to see in a bit there. And that can be another problem as well because they think to themselves like, oh well, I had a wonderful time in the 5-star hotel in say Bali, and they were just great people, but they didn't get the full picture of the culture of how the people how they live day to day and whatnot. They just saw the I guess the Disneyfied versions, and then they think that that can just be replicated everywhere. Just wanted to add that part in. Yeah,
Oh yeah, no, and it's it seems like most of the people that I was around that like world traveling kind of turned them into the opposite of me. But when you go when you and this is the case, and I'm going to be very careful how I word this just for several reasons. But to some degree, in the South now, the outside world is coming to us. So it's not so much you have to just go, off somewhere to, be turned or to see things or to know things. It's coming to you. And, and that might be just simply, doing something like going to a college somewhere. And you will encounter people that are even from the South that really aren't even from the South. Just because you're from Atlanta, but your parents are from New Jersey does not make you from the South. Just because you were born there, it does not. And a lot of those people have they have I can't think of a good analogy to use, but they don't actually know the South. And I don't want to beat the South drum too much. There's people that are better for that than me, but they really have no clue what everything outside of like the Atlanta or I guess you could say maybe like the Richmond or uh, New Orleans or Dallas metroplex is. They really don't. It's a whole other animal, a whole other jungle there. And these people, or Nashville, even Nashville, and you know, it's just weird. Like the people I know, grew up, went to high school with. And those people, they moved off. It ate them alive, and everything they do now is like they want to basically take a massive, dump of excrement on their hometown. They talk about how bad it is. Sure, you might have had some bad memories in your small hometown, but for somebody like me, my dream is to help my community, live in my small town, and build a legacy, build roots. So it's kind of hard.
essentially, the Hicklib type. They got out of there, so they're feeling, well, I'm better than that. And as you brought up, people who move into the area from other places, they live in the South, but they're not of the South, and that's an excellent way to put it. Because they can't go down the street to the family cemetery and see ancestors from 100 plus years ago there and still hear the stories and whatnot, especially as you pointed out. Yeah, we moved down from New Jersey. Just as you were saying, someone saying, yeah, for example, I've gone to Texas. I went to Dallas. Okay, you went to Dallas. I mean, it's not like you drove through there. It's not like you spent time with the people or learned about traditions and cultures there or whatnot. And I think that kind of went back to what I said earlier about people who travel that turn into with the cosmopolitan mindset, and especially see things such as more diversity is great, more restaurants are great. Oh, isn't it great? We have all these different things going on, and it's like, well, no, it's not great. It's changing up the community. It's changing up the culture. And just because you can get your favorite, fill in the blank foreign dish from Grubhub now, that that doesn't automatically mean it's progress and this is awesome or something.
And that's another thing I've noticed too with like the younger generations is, we have definitely moved away from like home style cooking, and there's probably several factors. Number one, women are not really stay at home moms anymore. Most of them probably aren't even learning to cook from their mothers, and thus, the old, regional recipes are dying. Combined with, too, most people I know just seem like they love to eat up foreign food, whether it's Asian or whatever. They just like it better than like you know, I mean, they'll eat some sushi, but, you know, forbid you put a piece of fried chicken and, mashed potatoes in front of them.
Yeah, exactly. Something else I was going to bring up about growing up there. I'm a bit older than you, and so people don't seem to realize, the past isn't just the past. It's not just it's an entirely different world. Not said enough is how for people of a certain age, which I'll go ahead and say I'm in my 40s. Not up to the boomer level yet, but still growing up, we didn't have the 24/7 news cycle. Yeah, the internet was coming on board, and when it came out, we had it at the house, and I utilized it to of course go online when there was actually websites and not just Google and Amazon and for information and just knowledge actually. But it just wasn't as prevalent back then, and so you didn't have this just constant bombardment of messaging, propaganda, dare say. And so it was just a different time. And the things you bring up about, the home cooking and the connections, yeah, they were stronger back then because there weren't so many distractions. What was important was right in front of you, family, community. Uh, I think it was Z-Man that runs the podcast, and he has a great website, writing all the time. He noted, Amazon isn't sponsoring the local, baseball, little league baseball teams. These things aren't happening. So as small businesses have gone to the wayside, and all those former connections are getting broken. There's going to be, of course, cultural carnage there. There's going to be changes, and they're not all going to be for the good.
That is exactly right. There's so much stuff that's being uprooted and changed and destroyed that we wouldn't even imagine. Um, so where I was trying to think about where I wanted to go with that in terms of your background, and I guess you could tell me, what did you do in the military, if you're okay with me asking that?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, my main focus and missions throughout my service was I was in the aviation field, specifically helicopter squadrons. Started out overseas with Helo Squadron. That our mission mainly focused on what's called vertical replenishments, which is just ferrying supplies amongst the ships. We did search and rescue, and then also maritime security missions. So I've had the pleasure of being off the coast of Somalia, as well as off the coast of Iraq and Indonesia, and plenty other places in between there. So it was a very exciting career. I mean, that was definitely, as cliche as it sounds, it's not just a job; it's an adventure. And there's many times where it was definitely, adventurous moments there. And I really enjoyed the missions that we did. Not all, of course, but there was a real sense of purpose and achievement.
If you don't mind me asking, what was the craziest or most eventful mission you ever went on?
Well, I've written about uh, two specific deployments that I did. One of them, of course, was the Somali pirate ops in the Gulf of Aden, and we were out there, of course, doing maritime security. And so, you know, just to be able to see right out there on the water pirate ships coming at you. Yeah, you're on of course, a U.S. warship, and then that moment where that realization kicks into them, like, wait a minute, that's not a transport, ship. That's not a supply ship. We need to turn around, and so there's a frustration there of not being able to just, well, take them out, really, like actually solve the problem. But I think the wildest time was when we would go through, it's called the Straits of Hormuz. It's between the United Arab Emirates and Iran, and it's the bottleneck before you get into the Persian Gulf there. And so you can see both sides of the land. And every time that we would go through there, the Iranian gunboats would come out and basically harass us. And so at any moment, any time there, you're thinking to yourself, this could totally just kick off right now. And that was pretty wild because you know what do they say? How a lot of your times it's long stretches of boredom, and then 10 minutes of excitement. That's kind of how it felt there a lot. But you
I've heard the metric of 90% boredom, 10% sheer terror.
Yeah, and that's where those moments were at when we were doing A-bot operations off the coast of Iraq to allegedly get their oil machine running again, off the oil platforms. There's actually fog that rolls in, and there's a thing in California they call it the Thule fog. I mean, because it's so thick, you can't see. And we would be sitting out there, and there were times where I was just on the side of the ship. It's the morning, and then boom, there's a fishing dhow, which is their style of fishing vessel that would just be right next to your ship. And I was actually underway when the USS Cole was hit. I wasn't in that AOR, but I was underway, and so that realization that they could just take us out. We're kind of defenseless here a bit, because the ships were so small that they're not really showing up on any of the scans. And thankfully, I mean, every single time, the fishermen were just asking for food and water and whatnot. But it just kind of really just struck you how much of a target that you're just out there, you know.
Um, and it's I imagine it probably feels like you're in a lonely bastion, just surrounded by enemies on all sides, and you know, I mean, the way you're talking is that you were probably part of a small unit. You're literally you're literally outnumbered in every way. There's not many of you. You're not exactly in the best defensive position. You're just on a giant thingy out in the water, and you're literally surrounded on all sides and outnumbered. So I imagine it probably was not the most comfortable feeling, but at the same time, I imagine you probably had a sense of like, oh, like something might not. It's kind of like you go out in public somewhere, you might be in the hood or something, go through a dangerous kind of area or crappy area, and you kind of think like, oh, like I probably won't get robbed. Oh, these people might look shady, but like they're just people trying to hustle about their day. But something could happen.
Oh, definitely. That's just that. I'm not going to put up some brave front that it was easy or something. No, it's just that constant low level of tension, anxiety, and when you would come back from the deployments, it take a while to kind of unwind and really get it out of your system on that one. Thankfully I have a lot of my hobbies. Of course, I have a motorcycle, so that was a good way to blow off steam. Of course, still love to read everything I can get my hands on. So reading is good, but yeah, it's very different. Like you say, you're not sitting behind like a defense posture there. You're just the battlefield is everywhere. You're on the water. You're out there. So that uncertainty. I'm not gonna lie, that wasn't fun at all. Now I believe how we talked earlier a while back though about being on the water though, the viewpoints and just the perspectives that you would get, from like the night sky of seeing the Milky Way, and just all of the kind of the wonders of how big this world really is. That's something that I still cherish as memories for sure, because that can't be taken away. And how many people can say that they did, they saw that and they did that, you know. So I don't want to like make it an entire downer of like, yeah, all those, this was bad and stuff. I mean, there was awesome times all the time out there too.
And I know you told me you've had some more or less questionable times out there with some stuff you've seen. Could you maybe get into that?
Yeah, I kind of consider myself in a lot of aspects open-mindedly skeptical. I I love watching the shows about, of course, UFOs, aliens, and whatnot. But when you're out there, there's stuff you see that you can't explain, and especially for me, coming from a background of aviation, I can pick out anything in the sky practically. I know what what an airliner is, what a jet fighter is, what helos. all that. And yeah, there were times you would see stuff in the air, under the water, and couldn't explain it. I mean, it was just okay. We just saw whatever that was. And don't get me wrong, I mean, it might have been maybe a satellite here and there that was kind of wonky, but at times though, the flight patterns were not, a passing satellite or even like a drone or an airplane. And yeah, I have some questions. I don't have any solid answers on what it was, but that's why I don't really scoff too much when these stories come out of what people have seen, because there's a great possibility it could be something that we don't know about.
And that's me to some extent of like, when I hear things of that nature, I always lean to that, it's probably something normal that somebody caught at a weird time, or it's something that, is going to be normal the next 20 years. Me, I don't really have any weird, creepy stories, and I really kind of hope I don't. As cucked as that sounds, um, I've never really had anything of that nature as far as I'm aware. Um, there might be one instance I could think of, one time in high school out in the woods, but I think it might have been me just imagining something or, yeah, I think it might have been me imagining something, and it was just kind of like it was a single incident. I thought I heard something say my name, but, like, something like, like, yell out to get my attention, and it wasn't like a creepy or anything. It was almost like a something gets your attention, like if I was like, "Hey, Arthur," like "Hey, Arthur," and you're like, "What?" Like, something kinda like that, and it might have been one of the people I was with calling for me, and they just, whatever, but it was just kinda like a something got my attention, and I turned to the left, and it was just kinda like, "Huh?" Like, "Oh," and I just kinda kept I thought it was weird, but I kinda just kept going and just kinda sorta like, ah, I just kinda like it just happened. I mean, I have, people I think people, at work and things like that, I think people say my name sometimes, and I kinda go like, "You say my name?" And, they didn't. So maybe it's just, early stage schizophrenia or however you pronounce it. So maybe I'm a little crazy.
Or, I mean, another way to look at it could possibly be just maybe some sort of echoes. I mean, I'm real big into the ideas of possibilities of different dimensions and whatnot, and everything else. Like I'm not totally sold on it, but there's enough stuff out there, even scientific tests and analysis that there are other realms. Even science is starting to prove that. So who knows? Could have possibly been some sort of echo from the past, or possible sense of epigenetics. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. See, I've never really thought or dabbled in that because I keep, I'd say, a pretty Christian conservative mindset. Um, so I don't really like think on that stuff. I know some people in our sphere have gotten into the whole like what I'm just gonna call like it's not what they'd want it to be called, but I'm also not gonna try to go in and explain things, but like mystic. They've gotten into this kind of mysticism, mystic dynamic, and that's not what it's called at all. But I just use that word so people can kind of sort of hear that and just take it as it is. And it just kind of is what it is.
Yeah,
And
I look at. Oh, sorry.
oh no, I was gonna say I don't doubt the paranormal, but I don't think the paranormal is a haunted house. I think the paranormal is a could be just a like demon possessed person.
Oh yeah, definitely. And like I said, I'm really just coming from it from a place of being just a student and observer of the world. And I mean, what is that where they say, don't be so open minded that your brain falls out, but at the same time, just curiosity about things. That's kind of how I go about it. But as you say, people getting into the just going full bore into mysticism and everything else. No, I haven't treaded that path. When, like when they say, "Hey, I got this Ouija board. Let's check it out." No, sir. No, no. Y'all have fun with that. That's okay. Don't.
Well, obviously, I would say, "No, sir," y'all have fun with that in a different well, maybe I would maybe more take the smash bells approach and grab the thing and smash it. Though, I've heard that Ouija board is made by Hasbro. So, there's 2 ways you can look at that. Number 1, it's a joke, or number 2, uh, are some of our biggest producers are in league with demons. So that's something to think on that I'll let people think about. So I know you said I know you told me in some of the pre-interview stuff that when you got out of the military, you used your GI Bill to like go to college and things of that nature. So like how would you say you're which you haven't told me what you exactly studied, and I don't know if you want to tell the wider world what you studied, but um I know you're very well into reading and writing. So what got you into like that and more or less politics in general?
Well, yeah. Yeah, I don't have a problem with I went to school, got a degree, a business degree though, with the emphasis on project management. Use my GI Bill after retiring, and the big thing on I'd always been into politics. I've always like we talked about a little earlier, made the joke. I was that kid reading Rush Limbaugh's "The Way Things Ought to Be," at like 10 or 12. But I grew up in a house of books and knowledge. Um, Backstory on my dad: after he got out of the military, he went to the oil fields, and then he worked in electric rewind shops, just a number of jobs. But he was always going to night schools and furthering his education, getting more and more certificates and whatnot. So it was always impressed upon me to be, you know, well read, be knowledgeable. And so, with that, I always kind of had my opinions. And as we've gone, further and further into this century, and how the political ball has spun, I started looking more and more into what can I contribute, what can I do here. A really great Substacker that I follow, a librarian of I always say it wrong, but Serrano. He actually wrote today an essay about, being more people on our side need to be more open to being teachers, being instructors, being not going to, the high school and teaching or college, but more or less within the political spectrum of teaching this younger generations, Gen Z, young millennials, even the alphas that are coming up, to show them like, hey, these are our principles. This is how this should go, to kind of guide that. And the reason I started writing is that wasn't really something that I had done before starting college with my GI Bill. And of course, you get in there and you've got to start writing papers. And at first it was kind of laborious, and then I realized I like doing this. I like writing. And so, I started putting a few things out here and there, and the reception was pretty good. Had a few people say, "Hey, you should write." And, you know, like with anything, any endeavor, you take that leap into it, and that's where I'm at now. And so I just try to, you know, how they say, get in where you fit in, at least, within the right wing sphere, the online sphere for now, is that, try to put out consistent essays and papers, you know, pushing us towards a better future, trying to show there is a better way. And also, trying to take back the curtain of what we've been told, at least on the post World War II, post World War II consensus, or even further back with history, because you see that there is just too much manipulation with it, and a lot of these supposed pillars of knowledge, of historical knowledge, the official thing, it's not official, and it was utilized for means and ways to get control people, pretty much. you know But great example today. Of course, I mean, I'm always on the mainstream news, reading, New York Times, Washington Post, everybody. And, one of the biggest topics of the week and, well, in the world, it seems, is, the Ukrainian Russian, uh, uh, um, the talks they're having, of course, about ending the war. And nearly every single, mainstream op-ed, editorials, opinion pieces, they all do parallels to 1938. They all do parallels to Chamberlain, and every single one of them tries to break it down and put that out as it's, that's the official story. This is exactly the situation we're in right now. If this goes this way, then this is where, we could have stopped, Putin, Hitler, and you're going, this is so over the top ridiculous. And it's kind of one of those things, like when you start noticing the patterns, when you start seeing it, you can't unsee it. And that's a part of my writing where I try to, combat against that, whether it's posting on Twitter or now notes on Substack. Really just trying to put out the as the expression, or put out the breadcrumbs, for kind of that normie crowd that, you know look deeper into these issues. Look a little closer. Look at what they're telling you versus what makes sense. Where's the common sense in it? And that goes, not just within, Ukraine, Russia, or other geopolitical things, but that goes within information they put out on our economy or immigration, or, you pick anything and you look, and you got to look and see what is the angle here. Why is this getting pushed? And I'm just hoping more people, in my little way, I help more people kind of just look closer. As cheesy as it sounds, think for yourself. Don't just take it at face value. Look more into what's going on, because if we stay uninformed, well, then that's the easiest way to control all of this. And I want a better future for the nation, and for our side, and everybody involved.
Yes, that's a good idea. And that's kind of like, when I started this YouTube channel, I thought about, okay, I like history. I like, interviewing people that are smarter than me. I like talking to people that are smarter than me and talking about, these things. And I guess what I can do is I can just talk. So that was kind of sort of my idea. And now I'm trying to find a way to use this as a serve a better purpose than just my personal entertainment. And, fortunately, the more and more I do this, the more it gets addictive, the more videos you put out and things of that nature. But then you realize, okay, like, it's an excuse to have bad quality, on video one. When you get to video number 10, your quality should up, and, it does really become work, and, you have to make good work. So it does become, kind of like you do see a higher purpose in it that's not just yourself and for your own entertainment.
And definitely, and something else I was going to add in what I was saying earlier is, in regards to our, legacy media. This is an awesome time. This really seems that the walls are falling. Trust within the supposed, your mainstream media. It's just falling down left and right, and that's good to see. And it's good to see more and more voices. Where you can just start off, on a social media platform, and then, next thing you know, you're getting, not me, of course, but I'm saying, guys within our sphere getting quoted, on the major shows and from the influential figures, and our ideas are getting, out there. That seems to be why there's such a pushback and some fear about, uh, you know, the new media and whatnot. But no, we are the media, and they're losing their grip on it. And I think it's freaking them out a bit. I mean, you just look at the drops in the subscriptions and the viewerships, across the board, CNN and MSNBC and whatnot. And of course, now with the revelations from the USAID and how much of this, left wing supposed mainstream ideas was getting astroturfed by slush funds that they were paying themselves out to, you know, and you still see that. Like, for instance, on Substack, there's a couple of accounts that just magically jumped over, and we're kind of making the joke on that platform, calling it cringe stack, because these are, left wing figures that they get on there, and somehow magically they have 100,000 subscribers and so many paid, and you're thinking to yourself, this is not organic. Still, this is just another iteration of the fake news per se. It's just getting propped up, and it's good that more and more people are seeing that in action and going, hold on a second, they haven't been telling us the truth for a long time. Now that doesn't mean, of course, that your random YouTuber is spitting fire and everything they say is gospel. No, but it also means that more sources are better. It's better to be able to filter through and disseminate and really kind of get at what's actually going on. For me, we got a lot of great guys on our side that are known for the eloquence and prose of their writing. I mean, they can produce 20,000 word essays on the esoteric meaning and ancient heroes and how they relate to today. To me, that's awesome, and I read them and they're great, but that's not really my style. I try to keep it within 1,000 to 2,000 words, maybe a couple of pictures, because it's bite size, if that's the best way to put it. I do have some ideas for a book that I'm writing and putting together, but I just kind of go not quite social media posting small, but I just try to go for something somebody can read within like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and get a thought from it. Just make them think for a second, kind of look at things in a little different way. Spark the mind.
Yeah, that's what we need. People, think, oh, we need just like grand producers, grand narratives. But I still think we're at a time that there's people out there to reach. It's dwindling every day, but people just need to read something that makes them think. Maybe I don't need to buy that narrative completely. And so I think that's good work that you're doing in that, and you're definitely more consistent writer than myself. So I have to, definitely give you a hands up for that. Especially you're probably also more busy, I'd imagine, than me as being just a young guy. But what was I gonna say? Talking about the military stuff. What was your favorite helicopter number what's your favorite helicopter? Number 2, what was your favorite helicopter in the military?
Oh, definitely the H-46 Sea Knight. Kind of looks like a Army Chinook, but it's the Navy version. It's called the
What do
Frog because it's got the two wheels in the back. The one in the front, it's a tandem rotor. It's got the both main rotor heads.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that bird. I remember you have these, you have these ideas of when you join the military, thinking to yourself that okay, I'm about to be into a world. Everything will be high tech. Everything will be, just so advanced. And I remember getting to my first squadron, and there were patches on the flight suits from the pilots and aircrew and whatnot, and even up on the wall some of the banners, and it said never trust a frog under 30, and frog was spelled PHROG. And I'm asking about that, like, what's the frog? And they're like, well, that's our helos. I'm like, what's the under 30? What does that mean? They're like, dude, our youngest this was in 1998. He goes, our youngest bird was built in 1968. Like, oh really? But they were workhorses. I mean, the tandem rotor system in itself, two main rotors, that is far more advanced, at least within the maneuverability and payload and everything else than even like a Black Hawk or whatnot. So that was my favorite bird. I was also with H-60s as well, the Black Hawks too, and then
Dang.
spent some time with F-18s.
What do you think about little birds?
Oh, they're cool. The Kiowas, they're awesome. I
Mm.
mean, for the mission that they're for, there, of course. Like I said, within the spectrum realm I was in, we needed kind of the bigger, kind of medium payload helos for what we did.
So were you a pilot, or were you more like just on a crew?
No, no, I was just on the crew within the maintenance department.
I
Our
see.
big thing was we would take these deployments. You would take two helicopters, basically a detachment of about 30 of us, 10 or 12 pilots, and then the rest, everybody else was maintainers and whatnot.
Did they
I take 10 or 12 air crew, so that was pilots and air crew.
do they let y'all do they let y'all like just go out for like a ride?
Oh
Like
yeah, fan flights. Yeah, you could volunteer. I mean, of course, if it didn't interfere with the missions, there was a lot of just familiarization flights. That's one of my best memories. The Pacific island of Guam was where I started out at, and it's 30 by 10 miles, not a big island. And I went on my first fan flight, and it's like as soon as the helo gets a certain point in the air, and you're going, well, there's the whole island, you know.
she
Uh, we were when we were in the Persian Gulf, the uh, the air crew, because they do search and rescue, SAR, and everything else. Their
mhm,
rescue, they had to requal, so they were doing what's called SAR dips, which is essentially jumping out of the back of the helo into the water. And
mhm,
our officer in charge put it out that hey, anybody wants to go up and jump out of the bird, go ahead. And we got some really cool opportunities like that. Like if they went out and had to qual on the 50 cals, machine guns, you could go out there, shoot some rounds and stuff too as well. But that day, I think it was about 8 or 9 of us raised our hand. We're like, yeah, we'll do SAR dips tomorrow. That next morning, we're out on the flight deck, and Commander Kelso, I still remember his name. He was a really cool officer, really great leader. But he comes out, we're all there, all around there, and he goes, "All right, before we kick this off, I just want to give y'all some information." And he pulls out, some papers and proceeds to tell us the statistics for the last 10 years of shark attacks in the waters. And then says, so is everybody ready to go? And, out of like the 8 of us that volunteered, it dropped down to about 4. I was like, what's the odds I'm going to jump out and land on a shark? And they had the rescue rib boat out there anyway. So it's not like you're
yeah,
in the water for an hour or something. You jump and, you get picked up by the boat. But the first thing they said, because you have the hatch in the back, and so in the ramp, and they were very adamant, like, do not jump out of the helicopter. You're stepping off. You're just stepping off the ledge, because if you jump, you're going to hit your head on the hatch. And we're up there, and I was the second to go. And the first guy, what does he do? He jumps, hits his head, and then basically belly flops 30 feet down or 25 feet down. It's like, okay, don't do what that guy did.
you just gotta step off. Yeah, that's what they say step off instead of jump off in like the paratrooper stuff. And I guess it makes sense. I think about like paratroopers. Like they're not jumping out of like a plane. They like almost like fall out of a plane. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. I've never thought about that. That in what I'm going to call, in layman's terms, airborne operations, parachuting out of a helicopter or plane, that no one really jumps out. They more or less fall out. That
Yeah.
really like amazes me. Actually, I guess that's something really little that I never thought of. Well, I think we're kind of approaching on the time because like I said, I have to get to bed. But there's nothing more I can really think to ask on the interview besides maybe like what are some big projects you think you're working on?
Oh, like I said before, the book idea is a big one. That's I don't see that getting done. Well, I take it back. No, I think that could possibly be done by the end of this year if I keep working at it. So I'm working on that, and I did do a bit of a semi podcast on the Substack where I was reading, my essays, but also kind of adding in extra information and a bit more to it. And I've been working on getting back to that, but really just the book idea is the biggest one.
And I think I remember you doing some audio stuff. You some like what would you call it? Audiobook stuff on your Substack as well.
Yeah, yeah. That's what I was referring to a second ago about reading out the essays, but not just sitting there reading them. I mean, yeah, I read them, but it was also adding in. Oh, by the way, because even after you get done with an essay, an article, or a piece, there's always more that you want to add to it, and so going back to that and reading it out. It's kind of nice to be able to add in those additional thoughts and perspectives too.
And my problem that I noticed when I was doing any kind of reading of something I wrote is I kind of start outpacing what I've wrote when I speak. So in that and grammar problems or just the simple fact of having to follow a line and then like after like 5 lines down you actually like sometimes I get, and I don't know if it's a condition or not. I would imagine it's not a condition. It's just normal you know stuff close together. But sometimes I'll get the one of the sentences mixed up and I'll start reading it again. So it's like I have to like really pay attention when I read something. So follow that line all the way down to the next one. And it's kind of like you lose at the end of the one's like at the end of one line to the beginning of another. There's somewhere in that area I sometimes get mixed up on. So that's kind of why I try not to read off scripts or anything as much as possible. That's why I have a lot of guests on here too. Is you don't want to hear my country bumpkin accent talk about like ancient Greece.
Because it could turn into, so back in 1300 BC.
That's what I'm saying. You don't want to hear that. Well, I mean, yeah, you don't want to hear that. If I was British, it'd be different because British people can discuss all history. Obviously, their accents are a lot more. Their accents make them more refined people. Obviously, it's not like there's people from Cockney who sound worse than. I mean, I don't know what's better, Ebonics or Cockney accent.
Well, no, but what you're saying is just broad with memory. In boot camp, you have different assigned jobs and whatnot. And so we had our educational guy. He was picked out. He's like, okay, like basically going to be like the tutor, for the classes and everything we did. And what was amazing is this guy, I believe, if I recall, probably scored, because on the ASVAB at the time, I think the highest score was like a 99, and I'm pretty sure this guy was like a 97, probably a 99. He was smart as a whip, but he was also from LA, Lower Alabama. And so it kind of the old Jeff Foxworthy thing where you don't want to hear your brain surgeon say, what we're going to do is. So you imagine, this was our educational guy, you know, people asking like, what did he say, Art? And I'm like, whoa, man, I'm from Texas. We got a twang. We don't have that, that deepness, but smartest guy in the world. But it was still, even to me being from Texas, hearing him say, okay, y'all, what we're going to do today is we're going to look at page 4 and you need to pay attention to this. And, you know what I'm talking about.
You
It's,
said you said he was from L.A., Lower Alabama. Do you know where he happened to be from?
oh, we're talking 20 plus years ago. I would think maybe, I don't know, around Birmingham or something.
Oh, that's definitely not Lower Alabama. I mean, we have we have like two different. It just depends on who you go to. Some people have a different accents based off where they're from. But I watched a video of the South where it seems like there's almost like a sort of like Atlanta area, Georgia, across Alabama, up to Tennessee kind of accent. I guess you'd say it's like general deep South accent. And because you have there's an Appalachian accent, and then there's like a like Mississippi, deep South. There's Carolina accent, and I know like where I live, like some people I've met, they sound like they're straight out of the holler. Some people sound like they're from the more like the deep South. So it's just really kind of like I guess maybe what your family talks like or what got brought up on. Like to me, I think I just kind of have a general Southern accent. I don't think I have anything. I don't pronounce bear as bar. I say bear. But you won't hear me say beer. You
Oh
know,
no, and even here in California, it's the same thing. There's regional accents. You take somebody from say Huntington Beach, down along the coast, and then you get them next to somebody who's talking from Sacramento, and yeah, it's just different areas. Even though there's still that kind of that Californian accent, there's variations in it. You know, even in Texas, of course, the further east you go, the more deep south it gets, of course, and it's kind of, they call it, you know, the beginning of the deep south in northeast Texas. But that the way people talk there is, you know, if you get, you know, west of Dallas a couple hours, it's still like a Western accent, but it's not, you know, down in the holler, as you say.
Yeah, and I imagine, probably, a lot of Hispanic people are there, and that probably has something to also do with the accent. They're not from the South, and well, they're from the South, but not our South. So I imagine that probably kinda erodes at the accent a little bit to some
Well, I mean,
extent.
like I said, it's you know, it's where you're at because you know, I can speak some Spanish, but uh, to be honest, I didn't really pick up a whole bunch until I moved to California, and everybody was like, "Well, you're from Texas," and I said, "Yeah, North Texas. I'm almost 12 hours from the border. I mean, it's such a huge state that, you know, it just everyone expecting it to look like something out of a western, and it's like, well, no, you have East Texas, which is the piney woods, you know, lakes, rivers, trees, grass everywhere, and then of course West Texas, like El Paso, and it's desert. And you know, so same thing with California. So many kind of just have that perception of, you know, Los Angeles, San Francisco, totally leaving out areas such as the mountain regions, you know, the Sierra Nevadas and Yosemite, and then of course the Mojave Desert. You know, the topography is just very diverse, very different. You know, so it's just like I said, it's just very interesting. And I just want to say again, thank you for having me on, and it was great to talk today, and really appreciate the opportunity to, you know, start doing a couple of interviews, you know, kind of getting my work out there. And I hope that the listeners check in. Once again, I run a Substack. It's, you know, Arthur and Callie's Thoughts. And then you can also find me on Twitter, you know, at Arthur and Callie. And yeah, do you have any other questions?
Not really, none that I can think of to record on air. And as always, you can find me at Otto Wilhelmsen on Twitter. That is a capital O and a capital W. And then you find me on Substack at autohawker.substack.com. All right, Arthur, you have a good night and take care. Same to you listeners. And I thank you again, Arthur, for coming on here. Do you have any
Thank you
last
for
things to
having me.
say?
No, thank you for having me, and hope you have a great weekend.
You too, man. Take care. And thank y'all for listening in. Y'all have a good one. Be safe out there.